The ADA Amendments Act of 2008 reverses the rulings of two Supreme Court cases that limited coverage under the ADA and clarifies other coverage aspects of the Act. The term disability is defined under the ADA to mean a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities. Although the Amendments Act did not change the definition, it added language that will require courts to interpret the term disability differently and more broadly than it was interpreted in the past. First, the Amendments Act reverses a 1999 Supreme Court case that held mitigating or corrective measures could be considered in determining whether an employee is disabled under the Act. The Amendments Act makes clear that with the exception of ordinary eyeglasses or contact lenses, the determination of whether an impairment substantially limits a major life activity shall be made without regard to the beneficial effects of mitigating measures. In light of this change, individuals who would not have previously qualified for protection under the Act because their conditions could be improved with medication or devices, such as prosthetics, hearing aids, or other devices, may now qualify for such protection. Second, the Amendments Act similarly reverses the holding of a 2002 Supreme Court case that created a demanding standard for qualifying as disabled. The Amendments Act specifically provides that the term disability should be construed in favor of broad coverage under the Act. Accordingly, under the revisions of the Amendments Act, it will now be easier for an employee or applicant to show that he or she is disabled. Third, the Amendments Act changes make clear that an impairment which is episodic or in remission can still be considered a disability. The Amendments Act provides that such impairments can be disabilities if they would substantially limit a major life activity when active. Accordingly, employers will need to consider not only the current effects of a physical or mental impairment, but also what the effects would be if the impairment were in an active state. Finally, the Amendments Act detailed a list of activities that can be considered major life activities. This includes the following: caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, seeing, hearing, eating, sleeping, walking, standing, lifting, bending, speaking, breathing, learning, reading, concentrating, thinking, communicating, working, and the operation of a major bodily function. With the passage of the Amendments Act, it will be more important than ever that managers get help when confronted with a disability issue. The likelihood is that most impairments will be found to constitute disabilities. Accordingly, given the requirement to engage in the interactive process, managers will need to follow the prescriptive rules and get help before denying any request for accommodation.